The Deer Hunter wasn't just a war film, it was an elegy. Released in 1978, Michael Cimino's haunting epic explored the Vietnam War not through explosions or battle scenes, but through friendship, rituals, and quiet devastation. It captured the intimate grief of a Pennsylvania steel town as its sons went to war and returned forever altered. Few films have captured the American psyche in such raw, fractured detail. And few casts have ever carried that weight with more humanity. Audiences remember Robert De Niro's cold resolve, Christopher Walken's haunted gaze, and Meryl Streep's fragile grace. But tucked within the fabric of The Deer Hunter were quieter performances, subtle, powerful, unforgettable, by actors who are no longer with us. They weren't always in the spotlight, but they gave the film its breath, its ache, its truth. We remember John Cazale, whose eyes flickered with fear even as cancer slowly consumed him behind the scenes. We remember Shirley Stoler, whose maternal silence conveyed generations of immigrant pain and stoicism. And we remember Pierre Segui, a nameless man behind glass, representing the inhuman face of war's cruelty. This isn't just about death, it's about legacy. About how even the smallest roles, when done with heart, can leave echoes that last decades. These three actors may have had different paths, one a legend, one a character powerhouse, one a spectral mystery, but they each contributed to the Deer Hunter's enduring power. Today, we look back not to mourn, but to remember. To trace the humanity behind the film's unforgettable faces, and to honor those whose voices have faded, but whose images remain. John Cazale, the dying flame who refused to flicker. John Cazale's legacy is one of haunting brevity and unmatched brilliance. In The Deer Hunter, he played Stan, the brash, insecure friend who postures tough but is always just on the edge of unraveling. It was a role full of small gestures, the way he fiddled with his clothes, the anxious energy in his eyes, the fragile masculinity covering deeper fears. What most viewers didn't know, however, was that Cazale himself was dying during filming. Diagnosed with terminal lung cancer that had metastasized to his bones, he was racing against time to complete his final performance. At first, the studio didn't want to insure him. They tried to fire him. But Robert De Niro, along with Meryl Streep, Cazale's partner and fiercest advocate, refused to proceed without him. Cimino restructured the shoot to film all of Cazale's scenes first, wrapping him before his condition worsened. He never saw the finished film. He died on March 12, 1978, just months before its release. He was 42. Despite his short career, Cazale's filmography is almost mythic. He acted in only 5 films: The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Deer Hunter, all nominated for Best Picture. No other actor has a record like that. He was beloved by peers for his sensitivity, vulnerability, and emotional precision. Al Pacino called acting with Cazale like playing tennis with someone who's better than you. De Niro said he was one of the greats. And Meryl Streep has rarely spoken publicly about his death, calling it too painful, too intimate. Cazale brought to The Deer Hunter not just a character, but a presence. Stan's fidgety panic, his attempts to maintain dignity while unraveling, these were performances drawn from a man grappling with real mortality. And in that authenticity lies his quiet genius. He didn't need grand monologues or center stage. He existed in the shadows, whispering truths louder than most can shout. And then, just like that, he was gone, leaving behind a perfect, poignant trail of unforgettable roles. Shirley Stoler, the woman who mastered menace and mourned in silence. In a film dominated by masculine trauma and the horrors of war, Shirley Stoler's brief but unforgettable appearance as Stephen's mother brought a jarring jolt of maternal intensity. Her role was small, just a few scenes during the wedding and farewell sequences, but her presence was commanding, even unsettling. With her stern face, silent judgments, and steel-cold glances, she represented something unspoken, the old-world expectations and quiet suffering of those who stay behind. Stoler was no stranger to portraying intimidating women. Long before The Deer Hunter, She made waves in the 1975 Italian classic Seven Beauties, where she played a sadistic Nazi commandant, a role that earned her international acclaim and fear. Her ability to embody characters that unnerved audiences made her a go-to for roles requiring gravity, stoicism, or sheer presence. But beneath the formidable exterior was a deeply complex woman. Born in Brooklyn in 1929 to Russian Jewish parents, Shirley began her acting career in experimental theater, where she quickly stood out for her physicality and boldness. She didn't fit the mold of a traditional Hollywood actress, and in many ways she didn't try to. Instead, she carved a unique path for herself in independent cinema, often portraying characters that were harsh, wounded, or emotionally armored. Her performances were rarely warm, but always unforgettable. In The Deer Hunter, her brief role was a flash of authenticity. There was no sentimental goodbye, no warm embrace. Just the tight-lipped face of a mother watching her son go off to war, holding everything in, because that's what life had taught her to do. It's easy to overlook such a role in a film filled with larger performances, but Stoler brought with her decades of emotional weight, condensed into a few seconds of screen time. She passed away on February 17, 1999, at the age of 69. By then, she had faded somewhat from public view, her career having slowed, but her legacy endured through cult classics and performances that refused to be ignored. Shirley Stoler didn't need many lines, her silence said it all. Pierre Segui, the mysterious stranger in Saigon's deadliest game. He appeared for only a few minutes in The Deer Hunter, but Pierre Segui's character left an imprint as chilling as it was unforgettable. In the smoky, chaotic world of war-torn Saigon, Segui played a cold-eyed French gambler, a man calmly placing bets on who would survive Russian roulette. He didn't speak a word. He didn't have to. Sitting behind bulletproof glass, cigarette in hand, with a detached sneer, he symbolized the moral decay that war had birthed, a world where death was entertainment, and human lives were just chips on a table. Pierre Segui was a French actor who, like his character, often moved in and out of films with quiet menace and enigmatic energy. Little is known about his personal life, and in many ways, that suits the kind of roles he played, figures lurking in the background, watching, waiting, and always unsettling. In The Deer Hunter, his character had no name. He wasn't part of the central plot. But his presence elevated the Russian roulette sequence from tragedy to nightmare, a moment where humanity was not just lost, but bought and sold. Though not a major Hollywood figure, Segui appeared in a number of European films throughout the 1970s and early 80s, often in supporting roles. He had the look of a man who belonged to no country, suave, dangerous, and morally ambiguous. His casting in The Deer Hunter was pitch perfect. He didn't just look like someone who'd bet on death, he looked like someone who had seen too much of it already. Segui passed away in 1994, his death largely unpublicized outside of film circles. There were no obituaries in major newspapers, no retrospectives. But for those who noticed him, and there were many, he remains etched in memory as part of one of cinema's most harrowing scenes. Sometimes, the evil in a story doesn't come with a gun, but with a smile and a betting slip. In a film that exposed the trauma of war, Pierre Segui's role reminded us of something just as haunting, the world that profits from it, and watches, without blinking, as men destroy themselves. 3 shadows that still linger, what we carry from The Deer Hunter. As years pass, The Deer Hunter continues to speak, not just as a story about war, but as a meditation on loss. Loss of innocence. Loss of self. And now, the loss of some of the very people who helped bring its world to life. John Cazale, who gave everything he had, literally, to finish his final role before death claimed him. His performance remains a portrait of vulnerability and quiet desperation. Shirley Stoler, with her hard-lined face and tightly guarded grief, embodied the emotional restraint of an older generation. And Pierre Segui, whose cold detachment behind glass revealed a cruel truth: war doesn't just kill bodies, it erodes empathy. Their roles weren't the loudest. They didn't carry the story's biggest arcs. But without them, the film would be incomplete, missing the tension, the texture, the human details that give the deer hunter its devastating weight. These three actors now belong to the past, but their presence lives on every time someone dares to revisit that cold wedding hall, that suffocating bar in Saigon, that final toast in the diner. Cinema has a strange kind of mercy. It allows people to live forever in moments, in flickers of light and shadow. And so while the world may forget their names, the camera never will. Neither should we.